Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. All right, folks, buckle up, because what I'm about to break down might just be the spark that lights up Washington's offseason in 2026. The whispers coming out of D.C. aren't your usual smoke and mirrors speculation. This one feels real, and it's already stirring up the kind of buzz that leaves fans nervously refreshing their feeds. You know that eerie calm that settles in right before a storm hits? Yeah, that's exactly the vibe around the Washington Commanders right now. And if the hints from team insider John Keim are anything to go by, we're not talking about a light drizzle. This could be a full-blown offseason shakeup. Let's get into it, because this one might change how we see the Commanders rebuild moving forward. Now, before we start throwing out trade machine fantasies, let's set the stage. The 2025 season hasn't exactly gone the way General Manager Adam Peters probably imagined when he walked into the war room back in March. Remember when there was all that offseason hype? All those bold trades that had fans thinking, wait, are we really going for it this year? Well, turns out that even boldness has limits when your team is limping through injuries and regression hits your veterans like a brick wall. Through 8 weeks, the Commanders are sitting at 3-5, not disastrous, but far from inspiring. What's worse, that record doesn't even tell the full story. The roster's top-end talent has been undermined by poor depth, and that Super Bowl window people were whispering about just a year ago feels like it's been slammed shut, boarded up, and labeled maybe next time. Peters' reputation as a wheeler dealer has taken some hits, but let's be real, the guy's been aggressive since day one. He didn't hesitate to swing for big names. Cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, wide receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., and left tackle Laramie Tunsil. On paper, that's a trio that screams win-now mode. But in the NFL, paper dreams crumble fast when the trenches start losing battles and your stars can't stay on the field. Now, with only 6 draft picks lined up for 2026, including the fact that they already traded away their 2nd and 4th round selections, Peters' options are getting tighter by the day. And that's where the intrigue begins, because when you're short on picks, there's only one way to reload: trade talent. Enter Daron Payne. Yeah, that's right. The same Daron Payne who's been a cornerstone of Washington's defense. The same guy fans have watched grow from a raw, powerful interior rusher into one of the league's most complete defensive tackles. According to John Keim, one of the most plugged-in voices around the team, Payne could be the piece Peters uses to make that next major move. Keim doesn't toss out speculation lightly, so when he hints at the possibility that Payne might be shopped during the 2026 offseason, you have to pay attention. His logic makes sense, too. Payne's got just 1 year left on his current deal, he's playing at a high level, and the Commanders might not want to be locked into another expensive extension for a player whose best years might align with a timeline that's no longer in sync with the franchise's overall direction. Let's rewind the tape a bit to understand why Payne's name is coming up in trade chatter again. Back in 2022, he absolutely balled out. 11.5 sacks, constant backfield pressure, Pro Bowl honors, and a well-deserved payday that followed. That season was peak Daron Payne. Violent hands, disruptive first step, elite motor, the kind of player who made offensive lines adjust their protections every snap. But after the ink dried on that big extension, the fire dimmed a bit. His production dipped, his impact was less consistent, and whispers started circulating about whether he'd lost that prove-it-year edge. This season, though, different story. He's back to playing like a man possessed, the alpha dog in that defensive tackle room, especially now that Jonathan Allen's taken a bit of a back seat in terms of dominance. But here's the tricky part. Payne's resurgence might be exactly what makes him expendable. If Peters believes the team isn't ready to truly contend in 2026 and beyond, paying top-tier money to a defensive tackle approaching his late 20s might not fit the long-term plan. The Commanders' cap situation isn't catastrophic, but it's tight enough that every dollar counts, especially with younger players like Jaden Daniels and Jahan Dotson eventually needing extensions down the road. Trading Payne next offseason could save Washington $16.81 million in cap space, though it would come with $11.2 million in dead money. It's not an easy decision, but that kind of cap flexibility could be the key to unlocking a younger, deeper roster. Let's be real, losing Payne would sting. The guy's not just a stat sheet filler, he's a tone setter. His presence in the middle forces offenses to account for him every snap. He's the kind of player that gives a defense an identity, the guy whose name gets mentioned in every offensive coordinator's weekly meeting. But as painful as it sounds, sometimes you have to trade great players to become a great team. Peters has already shown he's not afraid to rip off the Band-Aid when it comes to reshaping this roster. Moving Payne would be another step in that process. A statement that the new era of Commanders football isn't just about patching old holes. It's about tearing down and rebuilding from a clean foundation. If Payne does hit the trade block, there's going to be a market. Believe that. Interior disruptors like him don't grow on trees, and teams with playoff aspirations but weak defensive interiors will be circling like sharks. Imagine contenders like the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, or even the Buffalo Bills picking up the phone. All three have playoff-caliber rosters, but have struggled to generate consistent interior pressure. Plug Payne into those lineups, and suddenly their defenses take a leap. Peters knows this, too. He won't move Payne for pennies. It would have to be a deal that brings meaningful draft capital or a young, controllable player who fits Washington's timeline. There's another layer here that fans can't ignore, the locker room dynamic. Payne's one of the few remaining links to the old regime, one of the last vestiges of the pre-Peters era. That's not inherently bad, but for a general manager who's clearly trying to reset the culture, moving on from familiar faces is part of the process. We saw it with Chase Young, we saw it with Montez Sweat, and Payne could be next. The idea isn't to purge for the sake of purging. It's to build a roster that fully reflects the new identity Peters is trying to forge. A locker room unified under one philosophy, one vision, one culture. Now, imagine this scenario. It's March 2026, free agency's about to kick off, and reports start flooding in that Washington has agreed to trade Daron Payne for a high second-round pick and a young edge rusher. The internet would explode. Fans would be split right down the middle, half praising Peters for thinking ahead, the other half furious that another homegrown star is being shipped off. But that's the nature of a true rebuild. You can't cling to sentiment in a league where windows close faster than you can say salary cap. Peters has to think 2, 3 years ahead, and if that means cashing in on Payne while his stock is high, that's what smart general managers do. At the end of the day, the Commanders' situation boils down to vision and timing. If Peters still believes in a near-term turnaround, maybe Payne stays. Maybe they work out a cap-friendly extension that keeps him in the fold while giving the team room to maneuver. But if Peters looks at this roster and sees a multi-year rebuild, then moving Payne now, when his value's peaking again, might be the pragmatic play. Because let's face it, by 2027, who knows what this team will look like? The Commanders are trying to find a long-term identity in a division that doesn't wait for anyone. The Eagles, Cowboys, and even the Giants are all pushing their chips in, and Washington can't afford to get stuck in no man's land. So yeah, Commanders fans, brace yourselves. The 2026 offseason could bring a headline-grabbing move that redefines what this team is about. And if that move happens to involve Daron Payne, don't say John Keim didn't warn us. Change is coming, and whether you like it or not, it might just be the shakeup this franchise needs to finally break free from the ghosts of its past. Because in the NFL, standing still is just another way of falling behind. And Adam Peters doesn't strike me as a guy who plans to stand still for very long. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. The NFL world is buzzing today with what might be the most explosive off-field controversy of the season so far. Sources close to the situation suggest that Washington Commanders star wide receiver Terry McLaurin has issued what insiders are calling a make-or-break ultimatum to the franchise, and the shockwaves of his statement are already being felt across locker rooms and sports media alike. According to reports that have yet to be officially confirmed by the team, McLaurin, who has been one of the most consistent and electrifying playmakers in the league over the past several seasons, has allegedly told the organization in no uncertain terms that if a certain quarterback, widely rumored to be in contention for the starting role, takes the field as the team's starter, then he doesn't see a future for himself with the Commanders. The statement, delivered privately to team executives, has leaked to insiders and is now the subject of intense speculation among fans, analysts, and even other players. The wording is reportedly stark. If he's the starter, this team doesn't need me. It's an ultimatum that, if true, raises more questions than answers, not only about the team's quarterback situation, but about the culture, chemistry, and direction of the franchise as a whole. For those who follow McLaurin's career, this is hardly out of character in terms of his confidence and his insistence on playing at the highest level. Drafted in 2019, he quickly made a name for himself with a combination of speed, route-running precision, and an uncanny ability to make contested catches. He has carried the Commanders' passing attack through seasons of uncertainty and quarterback carousel chaos, often putting up elite numbers despite the lack of a stable, franchise-caliber quarterback under center. But now, after years of being the offense's cornerstone and arguably the most talented skill position player on the roster, McLaurin's patience appears to have reached its limit. The implication is clear. He is unwilling to compromise his career trajectory, his chance at postseason success, and perhaps even his legacy in Washington, for the sake of playing with a quarterback he does not believe can compete at a championship level. The rumor has sent the fan base into a frenzy. Social media timelines are ablaze with reactions ranging from outrage to support. Some fans are siding with McLaurin, arguing that if the team is committed to contending, they need to prioritize keeping their proven star wide receiver happy and productive. Others are questioning his loyalty, pointing to the long history of players making ultimatums that ultimately backfired, leaving teams and fans feeling betrayed. The situation is compounded by the fact that the Commanders' quarterback room has been under scrutiny for months, with numerous reports of disagreements, behind-the-scenes tension, and a seeming lack of clarity on who the future starter will be. If McLaurin is indeed taking this hardline stance, it could be a tipping point in a saga that has already been described by insiders as volatile and high stakes. From a team management perspective, the decision is far from simple. On one hand, McLaurin is a rare talent, a wide receiver who can change the outcome of games almost single-handedly. On the other hand, the quarterback position is the most crucial in football, and the team may be considering a younger, cheaper, or strategically different option to build around for the next decade. If the rumors hold water, the front office faces a delicate balancing act. Do they capitulate to the demands of their star receiver to keep him happy, or do they stand firm on their quarterback plan, risking the departure of their most consistent offensive weapon? The stakes are enormous, not just for the upcoming season, but for the long-term direction of the franchise. Leaks from inside the organization suggest that discussions have already reached heated levels, with multiple executives, coaches, and even some veteran players weighing in privately on what could become a defining moment in the team's history. The timing of McLaurin's alleged ultimatum adds an extra layer of intrigue. With training camp looming and preseason matchups just around the corner, the Commanders are in a position where clarity, or at least the appearance of unity, could determine the tone of the season before the first official snap is even thrown. If McLaurin follows through on his stance, whether by requesting a trade or stepping away, it would not only shock the fan base, but also send a ripple effect through the league. Teams in need of a top-tier wide receiver are reportedly already monitoring the situation, and some insiders believe that if a trade materializes, it could be one of the most talked-about transactions of the offseason. The NFL, after all, has a history of stars shaking up rosters with their demands, and McLaurin is now seemingly in that category, willing to put his own career trajectory ahead of loyalty to the organization that drafted him. Analysts and pundits have been quick to speculate about the potential outcomes. Some suggest that this could be a calculated move by McLaurin to force the team into making a quarterback decision that aligns with his comfort level and playing style. Others believe it could be a power play intended to secure a new contract or guarantee the franchise prioritizes him in its offensive scheme. There's also the human element. A player who has consistently been asked to shoulder the offensive load in less than ideal circumstances might simply be asserting his value in the clearest way possible. Football, after all, is a business, and while fans often view it as a narrative of loyalty and heroism, the reality is that players have a limited window to maximize their careers and earning potential. McLaurin's reported ultimatum could be interpreted as a strategic move to protect both his career trajectory and his competitive ambitions. Meanwhile, inside the locker room, whispers of discontent are reportedly growing louder. Teammates have been described as uneasy but cautious, unsure how to publicly address the situation without jeopardizing their own standing with the organization or with McLaurin himself. Some veterans are said to be privately urging patience, hoping that a compromise can be found before the drama spills into the public eye in a way that could fracture team chemistry. The coaching staff, meanwhile, is reportedly caught in a difficult position, maintaining authority while managing the expectations of a star player who clearly believes he holds significant leverage. The ripple effect is undeniable. Position battles, game planning, and team morale could all be influenced by how this saga unfolds. In a league where media narratives can shape public perception and even impact on-field performance, the McLaurin ultimatum has become a story that no one in Washington or the wider NFL community can ignore. Of course, the rumors are exactly that, rumors, but when it comes to a player of McLaurin's stature, insiders are taking them seriously. The optics alone are significant. A player willing to make a public stand on his own terms sends a message not just to the team, but to the entire league. It signals a player who knows his worth and is unafraid to assert it, even if it means creating tension or forcing organizational decisions. Whether this ultimately results in a trade, a reconciliation, or a shift in the quarterback hierarchy, it's clear that Terry McLaurin is no longer content to quietly endure circumstances he perceives as detrimental to his career. The Commanders, on the other hand, now face a scenario where every decision will be scrutinized. Every press release, every practice, every snap could be interpreted through the lens of this unfolding drama. As the rumor mill spins, the question remains, will Washington accommodate McLaurin's demands, or will the franchise risk losing one of the league's most dynamic receivers to maintain its broader strategy at quarterback? No matter the answer, the NFL, and especially the Commanders fan base, is watching closely. Trades, ultimatum-driven negotiations, and locker room drama are nothing new to professional football, but few stories have the immediacy and potential impact of this one. Terry McLaurin, with his explosive playmaking ability and vocal stance, has thrust the Commanders into a moment of unprecedented uncertainty. The weeks ahead promise to be filled with speculation, analysis, and perhaps a dramatic resolution that could redefine the trajectory of the team, the player, and the league itself. Fans, commentators, and rival teams alike will be monitoring every development, every whisper, and every hint from Washington, because if McLaurin follows through, the consequences could reverberate far beyond the confines of FedEx Field. In the end, one thing is clear. Terry McLaurin is staking his claim, and the NFL world is paying attention. The question now is how the Commanders will respond to a star player's ultimatum, and whether the organization can navigate this moment without losing both its credibility and its competitive edge. For McLaurin, the stakes couldn't be higher, and for the team, the challenge is equally daunting. This is the kind of story that reminds fans why the NFL is as much about off-field drama and high-stakes negotiation as it is about touchdowns and tackles. The next chapter is unfolding in real time, and no one in Washington, or across the league, can afford to look away. Terry McLaurin has drawn a line in the sand, and whether the Commanders cross it or step back remains to be seen. One thing is for certain. The rumor of his ultimatum has already changed the conversation about the team, the quarterback, and the future of one of the NFL's most talented wide receivers, and it's a story that will continue to dominate headlines and locker room chatter for weeks to come. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.